First of all, I'm Reg Butterfield, and for quite some time I've been collaborating with my colleague Dr. Ross Worth on the nature and working of organizations. And some of you may have visited our earlier presentations. On Tuesday, we set out the historical context of organizations and an outline of current change models and approaches. These were followed by the introduction of organizational principles as a means of management earlier today or last night, depending on where you were located. We're now going to put this together and introduce you to a new approach to organizational design and management that is very different to that of the bureaucratic hierarchical model used by many today. Before moving into the main agenda of this presentation, I want to thank all of the presenters who have joined us in this marathon conference on change. What has impressed me is the mix and range of approaches that are evolving in this continuous and complex world of change. The professional approach by the presenters and their audiences' reaction and their questions have reinforced my faith in the people I'm proud to call colleagues in the worlds of change management, project management, and OD. I haven't managed to watch all of the presentations yet, and certainly will watch them all. Those that I have watched seem to be future forward thinking and to a degree challenging some of the current thoughts and approaches to change. None have said what is happening now is wrong. They are just helping their audiences to look at things differently and use whatever aspects that they believe will work for them. There are a few observations that have really stuck with me so far, and I want to just mention them now because they relate to what Ross and I have been researching and our current result, which I will demonstrate in a minute. Colin Davis said that the 20th century model of organizations and leadership is mechanistic and is all about the person in the role and not the role for the person. And that sort of stuck with me, and I think it's a very important thing for me to remember. Other presenters have also looked more at the holistic nature of people and organizations in various approaches, ranging from the health of the workforce through to new models that look at situations from different perspectives. There seems to be more focus on the people as people and not part of a machine, which I personally find really refreshing and important in a world of increasing robot to human interfaces, something we've all got to learn to live with more. All of them encourage us to have an open mind and take the opportunity to add alternative perspectives to our mental models that have served us well to date. None of them say that their way is better than others. It is this approach that Ross and I take in offering our ideas today. It's not our prescriptive way for the future. We offer our proposal as something to be considered when deciding about how organizations will operate in the future and the changes to the way organizations work if they are to remain relevant in their business or service world. Here we go again. Yeah. We call this different approach Futocracy. And I won't go into the details on how long it took us to get to that name, but I can assure you it was a very long, convoluted process. We're not saying that bureaucracy is wrong or inappropriate. When Weber and Fayol introduced their ideas of organizations and management, they were needed and appropriate at that time. In some situations, they may also be true today. Current organizational designs are built for control and not work. Hence, they are very difficult to change or to improve their responsiveness, irrespective of the catalyst or source for such a change. We are not so naive as to say there can be organizations without any form of control. It is what control means in the context of what is needed in this time and space, which may be different if we designed for work as opposed to control. Our approach is to design organizations for work. In doing so, we argue that it changes the whole dynamic of an organization, as we will demonstrate today. It's not a prescriptive structure or model, as this would tend to restrict its use to only particular types of organizations. It's more a set of building blocks based on the use of principles that help move the organization from the traditional, predominantly bureaucratic design based on organizational control to one that is designed to support organizational work. When this is the case, it involves things like distributive control, distributive decision-making and a move from strict linear objectives more towards outcomes. The challenge that faces organizations is to move away from the current paradigm that tends to move organizations from the original entrepreneurial excitement and freedom to a situation of managed control. And this is why we have developed the organizational approach called Futocracy. In order to help set the scene, to discuss the what and the how, we will use a pretty standard organizational design that is found all over the world. It is one that develops over time and has many constraints built into it from an early stage of its development. Our research indicates that it is a natural process and inherent in all organizations as they grow. We will start with this process of growth and then demonstrate how to relate this to our proposed new form of organization. Traditional organizations may look good on their charts with the hierarchical dots connected and the clear rules to support that structure. The question is, can they last in the current business and social changes? Organizations, like flowers, have a lifespan. As organizations grow and become more successful, they tend to develop into a hierarchical, bureaucratic format. Whilst there is nothing wrong with such a structure and way of working, experience shows that the development of a different mindset based on power and authority tends to develop amongst managers. This leads to business units becoming what are commonly known as silos, with the loyalty of the staff tending to be more towards their immediate senior as opposed to the organization itself. This competitiveness spreads into the teams themselves, with managers having to spend time putting out the fires rather than concentrate on the real work in hand. In order to ensure that the focus is on the organization as a whole, top-down management tends to occur, and decisions are encouraged to be escalated to the next levels of management. Reinforcement of operations is made through fixed processes that lack flexibility and provide very limited autonomy for the workforce. The rigidity and controlling nature of such an organization is very much of the industrial age model and is lost and struggles to cope in the emerging world of the industrial age, from the industrial age to the quantum world of business. In its effort to remain competitive and to either keep up with or try to get ahead of its competitors, this type of organization tends to use episodic change processes. These processes are infrequent, discrete, discontinuous, planned, and intentional. Today's business environment, it's all about change. This change is a continuous process, and the days of episodic change arguably are over. New organizational forms need to take this into account. So now is the time for a different way of thinking and a new way of working, and Futocracy is just that. Futocracy is aimed at developing organizations that are future-proof and where change is the new business model. In the rest of this presentation, we will outline the Futocratic approach. In doing so, we will briefly explain what the functions and how they work. More detail will be the subject of future publications. A Futocracy is based on principles and not structural adherence. This means that it's flexible and can be adopted from startups through to global organizations. There is no one fixed model structure or operating system. As we go through the elements of Futocracy, we'll use a common model as an example for illustrative purposes. However, this model is based on an important principle of no more than 3 levels of organization. It is important to state that the outcome you see today is not the only outcome that our approach creates. It's just one example to show the differences between the classic hierarchical triangle and how such an organization can be developed for the future.